Okay, we're gonna have a special meeting tonight. It's 5 o'clock, Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. Sangerville Select Board meeting. We got a very short agenda. We'll just jump past the Pledge of Allegiance and go right to the main item, which is the solid waste contract that we've been discussing with Dexter.
Okay, what's it called, Maine?
We sent some concerns to the attorney.
MMSWA, anyways, the acronym, I can't remember all of the
Right.
words in it.
Mid-Maine, solid waste.
Mid-Maine, okay,
Mid-Maine,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so they had a meeting Tuesday night to go over the suggestions that our attorney had,
Their town council.
their solid, Mid-Maine
Oh.
solid waste group.
Oh, okay, okay.
They didn't approve many of them. Our attorney wanted every time it said agreement changed to contract, and that's about all they really wanted to change. We added a section 6 with a clause about how they had to follow Maine and federal law to dispose of the waste. They decided they didn't want to add that because they already feel they have to do that. And then we had added section 7, which was an indemnity clause. They didn't want to do that. What else didn't they want to do? Oh, and the attorney had added a clause if they were shut down for more than 7 days, our rate would be abated, and they didn't want to do that at all. So basically, they didn't want to do much of any of our proposed changes. So I called Trampus and said, so what's up? Why is all of this a problem? Basically, it's a problem because Guilford has been with them for 30 years and has the contract as we originally saw it, and they felt that they didn't need 6 because it was already state law and that it was pushy of us to put it in there. I don't know, it seems to me it's one of those things, we do warrant articles every year that state, whatever state law is, and we have to approve them. So I don't know what the problem with that one is. The indemnity clause, apparently it just covers way too much, and again, they feel like we're pushing them. And I said, well, you know, we're a customer, we're not part of your group, so basically the liability should be yours. Trampus was citing a case where a oil disposal site had done what they felt they were supposed to. The DEP or the EPA changed the rules, and then they were out of compliance, and then everybody, including their customers, were hit with litigation.
Correct.
So that's why they did not want the indemnity clause. In terms of the 7-day issue, they feel that if they ever have an issue like that, they're going to be scrambling and have to take care of trash long before the 7th-day mark, and it's never going to be an issue, supposedly. So I reached out to John Hamer and said, well, what do you think? They basically turned down everything you said. He says of section 6, it is true that solid waste is required to comply with state and federal law, but without this clause, they would not be in breach of contract if they took the waste and dumped it. In a landfill, if they dumped it in a landfill in violation of state and federal law, they would get in trouble with the MDP, but not Sangerville. So I think that he was saying it gave us some protection if we had it in there. Section 7 really goes along with section 6. If they improperly dispose of waste, then they would be required to indemnify you if the Maine DEP or anyone else files suit because of it. If they are complying with the law and properly disposing of waste, they have nothing to worry about. I can also simplify the language if that is a concern, and he put it in as MMSWA hereby holds harmless and agrees to indemnify the user from and against any and all claims, suits, losses, injuries, damage, liabilities, and expenses arising from any claim related to the disposal of waste accepted by MMSWA for disposal. This section shall survive any expiration or termination of this contract. I'm not surprised that they have a concern about it, as it is a potential continuing liability for them, but it's hardly unreasonable. That being said, if they will not agree to it, the town's choice is to have a contract without an indemnification clause or look for another provider. It is probably not a huge risk to accept the contract without it, but the town needs to be aware that if anything happens, the town would be on the hook and the cost of environmental cleanup can be large. If they insist on deleting section 7, I still recommend retaining section 6. If keeping section 6 is a deal breaker, then the town will have to decide how much the town wants the contract. I would question why the MMSWA would object to section 6, where they acknowledge that they are required to comply with the state and federal law. Section 9, if they will agree to as a contract through the end of the year, then I guess that's all you can have. You may just need to keep signing contract renewals. We need to do that anyway because of our budget process. And section 10, perhaps I misunderstand how they are charging. I envision this as being a set monthly fee. If it is a metered fee based on tonnage of waste delivered, then no fee is incurred. If no waste is delivered, then that is fine. However, if it's a set monthly fee, I see no reason why the town should have to continue to pay fees for no services. Again, if they will not accept the language, then the town will either have to live with it or find another provider.
As far as 6 and 7, do we have anything in the current contract with Dover that's kind of along that verbiage?
They have no indemnity.
Well, we already know we're part of the cleanup, I guess, so we.
Yeah, and
I mean, is that probably why it's not there, or just not?
and the other one I'm not sure of, but I suspect it's not there.
Stating that they need to comply.
Comply with state.
It seems as though, if they're licensed in the state of Maine, they have to comply, right?
That,
I mean, I'm sure
Well, in
someone,
theory, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
if someone comes in and,
and if they're not complying, just because you wrote here that they had to comply, wouldn't make them, I
I think
mean,
section 7, like the lawyer was saying, is really the bigger piece to it.
the liability.
Section 7 is the liability
Right.
of it, that whether you comply or you didn't, it waives us of any added cost for cleanup, where
Mm-hmm.
that's why they don't want it there, because they know that without that in there, they can kinda spread that up to, it's gonna get spread back to us some.
Mhm.
So they don't-
well, and because you got an annual contract, all they're gonna do is raise the price.
Correct.
I mean, it's kind of the difference in that model. I mean, that's how it's interesting too, the attorney would really like us to have a multi-year contract. And I view it the opposite, we have much more security being able to walk away any year we
That's right,
want.
yeah.
Yeah, because who knows, we may go to Dexter in 2 years from now, Dover might really change
Make a
their.
sweet deal.
It could be all kinds of scenarios, where we
Yeah.
say, you know what, we guess we'll switch back, or we'll
Yeah.
do something totally different.
Sure.
Right,
So I see that as a bonus.
I do,
Yeah, I like the year to year, but.
yep.
Yeah, and there's no 1 year waiting period or anything like that. The fact that Dexter's willing to say, hey, come and go as you please, I suspect they're gonna treat us like a customer. If they don't, we won't renew. And I get, if you had a contract that all these other municipalities have been dealing with for 20 plus years, and then Sangerville says, well, we want you to rewrite it, that's not really what we did. We just sought some guidance from the
Well,
attorney.
I'm glad we did, because
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, when he was here, we clearly stated that, well, they just signed it, nobody ever reviewed it, it didn't go to an attorney. So, to reference back to, well, Guilford signed it, doesn't really make me feel warm and fuzzy, because we know that they didn't do anything.
And there was a whole piece of this that they had to work to even put their hands on, and we did finally get a copy of that, so.
And I wasn't aware, Guilford's been with them for 30 years.
That doesn't sound right.
He said sometime in the 80s, so, whew.
That's a nice long history.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
Bob Littlefield
we were
was
with
here in
Dover
the
for
90s,
30
wasn't
years,
he?
so.
Yeah.
So,
I think most of
the
the,
early 90s.
I think most of the discrepancies that we're looking at here would exist in the Dover contract as well, or maybe even worse. We never, if we hadn't
100%.
scrutined that,
100%.
Well, we're part of
Yeah, it's a different relationship.
relationship, and so we have liability in terms of closing and,
yeah,
Right, so we're not increasing our liability by switching to Dex. Well, we don't know that, but at least we're not making ourselves completely.
Correct.
We have liability with Dover, and therefore,
Well, we know we have a lot of liability.
yes, yes,
Honestly, I mean.
yeah.
well, we have a responsibility, financial responsibility to close that place when it's finally full.
That's better verbiage than liability, yes.
And that's
That's what I
a
meant by
separate,
liability,
that's a
yeah.
separate issue from the example that Trappist gave you, if someone did something,
Yeah.
we're clearly on the hook for that there.
Correct.
It's somewhat ambiguous here. I mean, Dexter doesn't wanna write in special language around it, but at least we have some arm's length, we don't own it.
Right, we're a customer,
Right, so.
you know,
I don't see that we're taking on more risk. I
think
suspect we've reduced our risk.
I think we reduced it a lot, even.
Which brings me to something that concerns me a little bit, because you had a conversation with the town manager, Mr. Kluge there. And I think he was trying to persuade you that there was nothing to worry about, but he said, there's 50 years left to this landfill.
Yep.
And that was assuming we stayed there.
Correct.
We're 18, call us 20% of what goes in there. It's reasonable to think there could be 70, 75 years left of that landfill.
Oh, definitely.
So and we've been in for 30, just easy math, let's say that landfill lasts 100 years. We would now be on the hook for 20% of 30%, or
Yeah,
roughly
yeah.
5% of the, but that's not gonna happen for 50 to 70 years.
Right.
We need to document the town's position in this, so that 50 years from now, when Dover comes back and says, hey, it's finally full,
We need to make sure somewhere where it's accessible or
yeah,
archived in a way that it can't go anywhere.
at least people will have some point of, we know how hard it is to
oh.
find a
history.
document from 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
so how do we memorialize this?
We need
And
to,
how do we quantify where we are on the hook with Dover, you know what I mean?
I don't think we're gonna be able to quantify it beyond what's on this tape, what the discussion that Dale had with Mr. Kluge. At the end of the day, 50 years from now, 75 years from now, someone's probably gonna reach out to Sangerville and say, you're responsible for a portion of this, and it's gonna go however it goes.
Right.
But we will be helping Sangerville's position by documenting all this as best we
Correct.
can.
Somehow we
Correct.
need to document the contract, document the closure, when we walked away, and all of that, so the dates are in line, so that.
What our percentage was there,
Yeah.
if we were 18% of that, what was,
So I'm pretty sure we have some emails from him that states those numbers, so I mean, somehow we gotta archive all of that, so that it's.
And you wonder if there's some way that every year, because obviously Dover has to do a report to something, I mean, they're reporting, no?
I didn't get that impression.
Yeah, it
Yeah, there's no
would
department.
almost be really prudent for us to every year get a letter from Dover saying, you know, almost,
I'd be not, but we weren't able, when we were a customer, we couldn't get any information.
right,
So I doubt that we're gonna get
But
more
I think
information.
that's why I agree with Mike, that's why it's so important, somehow, we've gotta lock all this information up in a way that 50, 75, 80, whatever years from now, when they do come knocking on the door and say you owe us X, we've got the
we know
information
exactly
have.
where we
Right.
stood the day we.
Yeah, I mean, if it's $1 million, 15, or 50 years from now, 75 years from now, we should be on the hook for maybe $50,000 of that.
Right.
As opposed to 280,000 of it.
Right, right,
So, and who knows, if it goes another 75, 80 years, they may not even expect anything from Sangerville by then. A lot will happen in the next 75 years, who knows? But,
Wouldn't happen, but would be really nice if say maybe next year they said, that, lay that whole scenario out there and your portion would be 50,000. Would you be willing to pay that and
be done,
be done?
and then come back, or whatever it
Right,
meant,
and
right,
you're totally no longer
right,
in it for anything.
yeah,
And I think us three would probably have to have a very serious conversation, I mean, if that could happen. But
right.
not gonna hold my breath for that to happen, but it would be nice. Would be something to think about.
Right. Well, the good news is that everything we do now is digitized. So it's not as though somebody has to go into a vault, right, to find,
Right.
right? I mean, it's very different now from if we were looking back 50
yeah, it
years
was,
from today.
it was folders and file cabinets and,
Yeah, boxes.
but it probably is always gonna be a lot of that.
Yeah, but at least if you did a search, somehow, something's
But if we
gonna.
could do it digitized, but I would still, even the written contract.
Oh,
and emails and
absolutely.
I'd print that stuff, laminate it, anything we could.
Yep.
I mean, knowing that it might have to live 50 or 75 years.
Right,
We have some boxes in the, the storage,
Mhm.
file boxes, and we can label one solid waste and put everything,
right.
And I have a
In there
laminator, if we don't have one, I would.
It might even be worth sharing that concern with the attorney. And is there a proper way to archive that? Maybe we should have a document, a registered document with the attorney.
Right.
okay,
Just so here's the line of demarcation.
Right.
This was when
We
Sangerville's
severed
commitment,
our
yeah.
contract with them.
Mhm.
That's
Because-
a good idea.
The legal document will
Yeah.
stand, well, hopefully stand the
Yeah.
test of time.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
there's no way to register it, I mean, like
Yeah,
a deed is registered, but then somebody'd have to know where to go look.
They may have a suggestion for what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so I guess what I need to know is,
Are we gonna give this a try?
correct,
I'm inclined to advance it.
I am as well.
yes, I am too.
I see you gave us an example of a signage or a notice that you're considering.
yeah,
I just thought maybe you might wanna throw the address of the Dexter facility
idea.
on there. I can tell you just anecdotally, everybody on my road is really excited. I can't wait to get their stickers.
That's great.
Most of them are familiar with that facility and they know if you have a project of cleanup, it's just really convenient as far as running over there.
Good.
So,
okay, anything else other than adding Dexter's address? I've talked to, I looked up on the Gazette, I've talked to the Observer, and I've talked to the Bangor Daily. You can put in per inch, it's like $17.50 for the Gazette or the Observer, per, but you only get that in twice.
I think that's
Myself,
not,
I'd throw it into one of them and I would throw it on the website and you throw it on the Facebook page.
There'll be
and
website, Facebook,
That's gonna be huge when you put it on the Facebook.
Facebook will work.
town report.
Yep,
Yep, that's another way of memorializing it.
yep, and I'd send it to all the people that you know, engaged people, Jerry Peters, all your committee members, everybody, all those
Whatever you
know.
got for email address.
East Sangerville Grain, the Historical Society, all those people, they're engaging citizens all the time.
Robinsons.
Yep, the Robinsons, it's almost as good as the internet. Yeah, I think it will be more than adequate.
Okay.
And I would call the commercial companies and the
Oh, yeah.
major ones so they know.
If you do a bulk email, just please put all those emails in under blind copy.
Yes.
Okay, I won't do bulk. I don't even know that I have, how many I have, but.
Oh, I bet you do. There used to be some big bulk email
Yep.
lists in that
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, we don't.
But
want
if you do it,
to
it's
go
fine,
there.
I mean, that's why we have them, is to do them type of things, but just make sure you add them all in under blind copy, not under regular. Cause
Yep.
you've had sharing emails isn't always a good thing, so.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, and people take advantage of it.
Yes,
Yep,
So just blind copy everybody, and then that way there's not an issue.
And there's no need to put in something like this, a contact name at the solid waste,
No.
right? I mean,
I would say 90% of the people aren't gonna see any difference because Bolsters is just doing
Right,
something
right.
different than they did last week.
Trash busters.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Bolsters, trash pushers, whoever you have, so,
Do we wanna set the price for the stickers?
yeah, we talked about $1, he suggested 5, I don't think they should be free,
No, I don't.
I'm fine with $1 myself.
me too.
Okay.
And
Yep.
especially because it's something you gotta buy every year. It's
Oh,
not
I
like-
know, I
We
know.
give away now and it's one a year forever,
And
Right.
we're making 100% profit at $1,
so.
so.
Okay, and Trappist gave me some brochures and some flyers, and I haven't obviously put those out because,
And the way it's, at least in Dexter, anybody who owned property could get a sticker. So if you were seasonal, you could get it at the pond, for example, you can come and get a sticker, so.
So it doesn't necessarily, if I came up from Florida and had Florida plates, as long as I have own real estate.
That's, in fact, Mike, the one I was specifically referencing, they were from Arizona. So
Okay.
they had Arizona plates, but they owned a place on Wassakeg and
Yep.
they got a sticker.
Okay. Yep.
So that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
except they won't be in registering vehicles, so you'll have to.
Well, that'll be up to them they'll have to come get one.
Yeah,
But it must.
But they're registering a boat or that
well,
type
we
of
specifically
thing.
went down to get our sticker. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
there's a whole.
But I mean, it must be the same way now. You must have camp owners that come up here from out of state and they come in and get one for
They
nothing.
do.
So, I mean,
Were there stickers for Dover?
yeah,
Oh, up to current,
yeah.
I didn't know.
Yes, you're supposed to have a sticker, yes.
I did not know. Do we charge?
Scoff
them?
law.
We
No.
do not,
Oh,
No.
I didn't know that.
we do keep control of them and, you know, their numbers and all that.
Really? I had no idea. Okay,
Anything further on this?
no,
I make a motion that we sign this contract and move to the Dexter facility.
effective May 1st, 2021.
Correct.
Second?
In favor? That's actually the end of our meeting. Is there anything else either one of you wanna discuss, or Friday?
Really quick, if possible, I know we don't have a date for a town meeting yet. One thing we've all talked about, that if it's possible to get it done, to get it on the warrant when we do have a meeting, should we talk about getting our nuisance ordinance to have some stuff to it? I mean, right now, we don't have any, right now, we have an ordinance for people to, in theory, to make people clean up the property, but there's nothing we can do about that. So, we know that the only way we can is if we change that verbiage. So, should we send our ordinance and what you know of information to the town's attorney and just have him write the verbiage the way it needs to be?
Well,
Or
do we wanna levy fines first of all?
Correct, yes, that's,
And I think if the three of us, or the two of us, think that we should levy fines, then we might wanna advance it that way.
yeah.
I almost feel like either levy a fine or get rid of the ordinance.
Right.
Well, and that's how I would, I mean, personally, that's my view, is if we could come up with a way, if we could get the amendment so we can levy a fine, and either that gets approved, or the ordinance is abolished, because right
Right.
now it's useless.
Right,
It's not fair to code enforcement, it's not fair to people who want to see action.
right.
It's just,
It's useless.
It's
it's useless, it's really
So
actually,
we have to get
it's
rid of
worse than nothing.
Right,
The
exactly.
nuisance ordinance is.
A nuisance.
Yeah,
So-
right, so that, I think.
So
that
we're
makes
all in
sense.
agreement on
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
I mean, the people have said they wanted it, so, and I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of, and I guess we probably are equally unsatisfied with some of the things that's happened, so until we have a leg of enforcement,
Yep,
there's nothing we can do.
right.
On listserv, I recently saw this email, it says, it's from the town manager of Belgrade. Friends, we are considering demolishing a dangerous building that is owned by someone who is incarcerated that's highly unlikely to remediate the situation. And that is posing a public health and safety hazard. We are looking to do this through a dangerous building action so we can recoup the cost through a property tax lien. One concern, however, is how to pay for this now. It would be represented as an unbudgeted expense. And I chimed in and said, could you please let me know something about how the process works and what everybody else thought you ought to do about it. The most in-depth answer was from the town of Denmark. We here in Denmark have become very familiar with the state statute process for removing abandoned and dangerous buildings. I assume you have followed the state law with the required notice, service, and public hearing to produce a findings and order by your council or select board. That gives you the authorization to demolish the building if not done by the owner. Make sure you jump through all the legal hoops in case you have to go to court and the judge asks you about every step of the way. We have had one demolished by a bogus mission group, but they paid for the demolition. We have now filed a lien to collect the $6,000 of legal fees we spent over the last 2 to 3 years. I suspect we won't get our money until the property is sold, and that may be a long time because of the debris buried on the property. One suggestion, if you have some talent in your Department of Public Works, is to rent an excavator and have them knock it down. My guess is that you can rent a medium-sized excavator for 2 days for about $1,000.
Right, but that's kind of different. We're not really looking at knocking buildings down, we just want them to.
Yeah, clean
You
up.
need to clean it up, or you need to take.
Or you're gonna start getting dinged every month or every
Right.
week or whatever the fee schedule.
Right,
is.
I don't wanna get down the road of the health and the safety aspect, I wanna use
Okay.
that nuisance ordinance the way it's intended, and then we can use that to force the landowner to clean it up, as long as we can find them.
Right.
Because I do have a couple of complaints about buildings.
Right, well, the
Okay.
problem with that is you get into an opinion, and that's where that is
Exactly.
sketchy, which really falls under nuisance.
I would say the
which
nuisance
is-
ordinance can be just as subjective. I mean,
So-
one man's
Yeah.
trash is
100%.
trash.
Yep,
And then you ultimately, just like Denmark, you're gonna spend money in legal fees to
Yeah.
try to collect this money and,
Yeah.
what if the property is under a rental? Is it the landlord that's now subject? I mean,
well, it's
it
still
gets,
the landowner, the owner of the property.
yep, I understand, but,
I mean-
now yeah, I know I'm trying to evict them, but I can't get them out. It's on, you know,
But that's what I'm saying, if we have an attorney, not MMA,
Yep.
because, I mean, we all know MMA, depending on exactly how you word it, is how they answer the question.
Right.
But if we actually had the attorney write this up, and with a legitimate, knowing that, we could end up in claims court or whatever about this process, so it's covered, we should be,
We should be all set.
right.
I would think of appeals, if, it would go to our appeals board.
Yep. It'd fall through us, go through the appeals, and then it would be, could end up in a court situation, but there again, to me, it's a code violation.
Yeah, your code enforcement would go to court.
Yeah. And I mean, at that level, it should, I mean, tax lien isn't that hard to do.
I wonder if it would pass.
Well, I think it's gonna tell us what we need to know, either we truly want it,
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, you don't.
That's right.
Right,
That's right.
it's a little bit like the ATV thing.
100%.
Because the ordinance itself didn't go through by a huge amount, if I remember right, it was pretty,
60%, I mean.
there was
a pretty
a
good
lot of
turnout for it.
discussion
Yeah, there
before.
was, very much so.
And it turns out it really had no teeth, and yet there was a lot of deliberation about it. It'd be interesting to see what
This, well, I mean, I remember this, I remember the meeting that this nuisance ordinance was up there and right to the vote, I didn't know if it was gonna pass.
Yeah, I was there as well, I wasn't a selectman.
No, me neither, but I mean, it was very controversial.
It was quite emotional.
Yeah.
There were some
Yeah.
people who were very emotionally invested in trying to get their neighbor to
Right,
clean up.
To clean it up.
Right.
To clean up, yep,
And I get it, I
Yeah.
totally
Oh,
get it.
yeah.
But it was so very subjective that there was a whole other contingent that's like.
Correct,
Yeah.
because they could see, gee, what if all of a sudden the crosshairs are
Yeah, they don't
on me?
like, right, they don't like my,
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know.
plant tulips and you're allergic to it, so my tulips
Yeah,
are your nuisance.
exactly.
Right.
And actually, I think that was actually one of the, weren't per se tulips, but it was something to do with gardening or something at that level, so.
Well, I don't know that we've got anybody growing hemp in Sangerville, but when you drive by one of those at the right time of year, you can smell it from, so I could see that scenario easily happening where someone objects to what you're growing. I mean, farming would have to
No.
be exempt.
Oh,
Well, it is.
yeah. Oh, it has to be, yeah, I
It
mean,
is
cow farming.
Agricultural periods, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we
I
all
mean,
know
because-
animals and,
Right.
but anyway, I can see it going either way, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't pass.
Oh, I could see it go, same deal, I mean, I could see, no, we're not doing that, you're not judging anybody, we're gonna get rid of it.
But I'm okay, personally, it's much about cleaning the thing, either let's have one
Right,
or
right,
not
right,
have one, and
right,
I
exactly.
can live with it
Let's-
either way.
Right,
But the situation we have now isn't fair to code enforcement, it's not fair to the
Doesn't work.
citizens who want action.
Right.
It's silly,
right,
so,
It's a useless ordinance.
yep,
okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Seems like we're all on the same page?
Yeah,
So I'll send it to town lawyer, and you want to know if there is a way to give this some teeth.
Correct.
Well, I think you already
Financial-
have something, we've kinda done this already. So you got something back from MMA and they actually quoted this other piece that should have been a part of that.
Okay.
So if you could find that,
Yeah.
if you could find that and send it, it's one less thing he may
right,
have to
he
dig
has to
through.
come up with.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's all.
And while you're talking about that, you might mention to him the fact that we want, our legacy liability to this current arrangement. Somehow, what's the best way to document that? It looks like this facility could last a total of 100 years, we have a proportional,
Yeah.
liability, yada, yada, yada. And he might have a suggestion.
Yeah,
I can do both of those. If you want to add a couple of different things, I've spoken to Paul Davis.
oh,
He is going to look into the cemetery, the perpetual care fund,
Good.
good.
because, I said,
Just makes no sense.
it makes no sense at all.
Well, he knows what it is, cause we talk about it every single year.
Yeah, but he didn't understand that we were making really minuscule amounts of interest in the fact that we have a bunch of money all tied up
Right.
and we'll never, ever.
And we're forced to pump 30% of
Yeah,
all
yeah,
in
yeah.
every year.
He probably thought the same thing we all did, as long as we've been putting 100% in there, so that's where it ought to go. I mean,
Well, I've
Right.
talked to several people who say, but you can spend it on things related to the
that's
cemetery.
right.
It's like, they're
No,
telling us we
we
can't.
No, that's
So-
the problem.
Well, I went through it with MMA and the gentleman told me at first that he thought we could.
Right,
We
you
could
said
get
that.
that principle, and by the time we finished the conversation, he
You
talked
did.
himself all the way back around, and it was like, no, I don't believe.
This is
so.
another example of where if we went to the town's attorney and you said, this is what we'd like to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if the town's attorney said, in our view, you can,
Yeah.
then
That's
I would
all
say
we
that we'd be
know.
good to go.
Right,
If we got that letter, now we wanna spend some of that money to repair a road in the cemetery.
The village cemetery has an issue that we really could use some money to. do.
Correct.
Yep.
So if
But
he would
that's-
give us an opinion that, yeah, you can use that.
That's the importance of what you just said it perfectly. When you ask the lawyer the question,
yeah,
you can't ask him a question in vague, or what about this, or what about, you really need to, and this, we've learned the hard way, paying the bills, but you really need to, what's your end goal? What do you wanna do, number one? And that's the question that you really need to ask is,
How do we get
how
from
do I
here
get to
to
this?
there?
Right, this is what I wanna do, make this happen.
mhm,
And usually, it can happen.
And so while I was talking to Paul, he told me that Sangerville is expected to get $130,000 from this Rescue America plan that is supposedly going through. Federally, that's what they've said Sangerville is going to get. The Maine legislature, I think yesterday or today, was working on a delivery system for that, but he said he'd update me when he had an update, but it looks like we're in line to get some money at any rate.
Sure.
And on the next subject, the road subject, I have spoken to Richard Flewelling at MMA because he seems very cogent about all of these issues, and he wanted to know if there was a simple way to make townways, and you maintain them, and everything else is not a townway and you don't maintain them. His view was that it's never gonna get that simple. However, that in a couple of cases, we're sitting in a really good position because in terms of the Turner Road and the Jackman Corner Road, when they accepted those deeds, they were basically right-of-ways. We don't They are not town ways. We do not have any obligation to maintain them. And in fact, we should every year put in a warrant article if we are going to.
Well, that's why we do what we do. I mean,
So but it's not a 5-year or 10-year like the winter maintenance. It is if you're gonna do work on this, you have to have approval. And he says that's in some ways much easier because, well, it's not that time frame and you don't forget 5 years down the road that you have to renew it. And B, you're not obligated if you decided that you weren't going to, it would go through the budget process, and if you don't have any money to budget for it, it doesn't happen.
Okay.
So, it led me to think about a few other roads and, how we're gonna deal with some of those, so. But I suspect you have a lot of people on those roads now that you're going to maintain.
Well, and I don't know what happens if you,
Well.
what if you did some maintenance and you technically you shouldn't have, and you did for several years, does your obligation change?
I sent him back a message saying, what is our liability if we don't maintain? And I don't think it changes in terms of if you do 1 year and you don't the next, because you have to have approval from year to year, and again, you're not obligated.
But if you just started treating a road like it was part of your inventory, and you shouldn't have, and then
Then you've
you,
got to,
There.
have you changed its status by doing that?
Perhaps,
Because you're
yeah.
plowing a road and you didn't ask to continue winter maintenance, you just started plowing it every year. Are you now obligated to plow it every year? Did you change its status? I don't know how that works.
that'd be a question to ask.
yeah,
Same way for summer maintenance. If you ever
Correct.
you're back to maintaining, yeah, okay.
Because it seems like some of these roads have gone in and out of inventory. Or at least the way that we've treated them. I don't think it's been official.
Correct.
And if, technically, they're not, I guess they're private ways then. I mean, the Turner Road, for example,
right.
that's not a town way, you're saying.
Everyone has a right of way. Their deed is a
They
right of way.
deeded the town basically a right of way. So, and we can, the town can choose to maintain it, but at no point has to maintain it. And I think because that's deeded, that's a little different than any other road where it's not deeded and you hit it a few years and then you don't, and then I think.
I mean, if they're private roads, we really shouldn't be doing anything with them.
Right.
I mean, that's where it gets complicated, because you agree to do something and,
But how does that work if it's deeded as a right of way? Does that mean that Sangerville owns the land that this,
We do not.
yeah.
And that's
So
why
someone owns that land.
You're abutting landowners.
Right.
They own to the center.
And they,
Exactly.
well,
and they
some
deeded,
cases they own, we have.
Yeah,
fence
they
over
own the
hill.
whole thing.
Yeah.
yeah. And they deeded access, but they didn't actually
Right.
make it a town
Hmm.
way.
All right. Anything further?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second? All in favor? It is 20 minutes to 6.